Spring storms make bad decisions feel reasonable. That's the part people forget. One minute, the weather app says light rain. The next minute, the sky starts throwing hail at you hard enough that a filthy concrete park restroom feels safer than your own car. I only stepped into that county park bathroom because the storm flipped in under a minute, and the second the metal door slammed behind me, I heard someone move in the last stall. This was last March, on my way home from work. Late afternoon, not even that late, just that dead time where traffic is ugly and you convince yourself killing 10 or 15 minutes somewhere will make the drive easier. I had a gas station coffee in the cup holder, cheap earbuds in my pocket, and I was driving this old 2012 Honda Civic with windshield wipers that always sounded 1 second away from giving up. I pulled into a small county park near the baseball fields because I'd done it before. Just park, walk the short paved loop, let traffic thin out, go home. It felt completely normal at first. Gray sky, a little bit of wind, nothing dramatic. My weather app said light rain. I remember looking at it because I almost didn't get out. Actually, wait, I think I looked at it after I parked, not before. It doesn't really matter. It said light rain, that's the point. So I took my coffee, locked the car, and started down the trail. There's a specific kind of quiet parks have before weather goes bad. The birds shut up. The air starts feeling thin. Even then, my brain was still filing everything under normal. I had one earbud in, just one. I always do that when I'm outside alone because hearing your own footsteps too clearly in an empty place makes you feel stupid. I got maybe halfway around the loop when the wind came through all at once, hard enough to bend the trees, and then the rain started. Not drizzle, real rain, big cold drops. Then hail like 30 seconds later. Little pieces at first, then enough that it was stinging my face and hands. My car was across the open lot. The restroom was closer. That's how people end up in places they shouldn't be. Distance starts making decisions for you. I ran for the restroom by the baseball field, head down, coffee gone out of my hand somewhere, sneakers sliding on the pavement. I remember the sound more than anything, those little hits of hail on the metal roof getting louder the closer I got. The door was already cracked open. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not wrong enough to stop me, just wrong enough that I noticed it. I grabbed the handle and went inside, and the door made that heavy metal bang behind me, and right after that, I heard movement from the last stall. Just one shift of weight. Shoe on concrete. Small sound. Hewn. The fluorescent light overhead was buzzing so loud it almost covered it. My wet sneakers were squeaking on the floor. The whole place smelled like cigarettes and wet clothes, not just bleach and piss like most public bathrooms. That hit me immediately. I don't remember his face, not really, but I remember that smell. Damp fabric, old smoke, and that cold concrete smell like the building had been sweating for years. There was one stall door shut all the way at the end. No feet moving at first. No cough, no toilet flush, nothing. Silence from a closed stall is different when you know somebody is in there. It stops feeling private and starts feeling deliberate. I should have left right then. I know that. But hail was smacking the roof so hard it sounded like handfuls of gravel. Thunder was cracking close enough to make the light flicker, and my Civic was sitting across an open lot with those useless windshield wipers and no cover anywhere near it. My phone battery was low, too, like stupid low. I remember seeing the red bar when I pulled it out. And there's this other thing that happens when you're trapped with a stranger and nothing has technically happened yet. You start policing your own reaction. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to act insane if it turns out to be some groundskeeper or a jogger or some guy trying to stay dry. So I stayed. I stood near the sink, dripping onto the floor, pretending to check my phone. There wasn't even a hand dryer in there. I always remember it as a hand dryer for some reason, but there wasn't one. Just the sink, the mirror with black spots around the edges, and that fluorescent buzzing above me. I looked down, because looking directly at the stall felt like admitting I was scared, and that's when I saw the boots. They were turned toward the door. Not sideways, not angled like somebody sitting on a toilet. just pointed straight at me under the gap. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I missed a step on stairs. My mouth went dry. My hands got that numb, useless feeling where your fingers don't belong to you anymore. And I still stood there. That's the worst part. Your body doesn't always pick fight or flight. Sometimes it picks wait. Sometimes it just locks. Then I heard the stall latch click once. Not open, just click. And this calm voice said, "You don't have to stand by the door. There's room in here." He said it like he was being polite. That's what made it so bad. Not angry, not rushed, almost friendly. The kind of voice people use when they're trying not to startle a dog. I couldn't get enough air in. My chest was barely moving. I stared at the sink because if I looked right at that stall, I thought something in me would break and I'd either bolt or freeze completely. Then he said, "Your Honda's getting hammered out there." That was the moment. That was the exact moment everything in my body turned to ice water. Because that meant he knew which car was mine. He'd either watched me pull in or watched me run up. He was sitting in that stall in silence, not using the bathroom, just listening, watching the door, watching the lot, and he wanted me to know he'd noticed me before I noticed him. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My legs had that weak, shaking feeling like I'd sprinted too hard, except I was just standing there. I swallowed and it hurt. I remember my phone feeling slippery in my hand from the rain. I don't know why this came into my head, but I suddenly thought if I acted surprised or disgusted or confrontational, it would turn into something else, something immediate. So I did the dumbest, smart thing I could think of. I lifted my phone and started talking like somebody had just answered. I said, "Yeah, I'm at the bathroom by the baseball field. Hurry up." My voice sounded wrong, too loud, then too thin, like it belonged to somebody else. He didn't answer. That silence was worse than if he had. I took one step back, then another, slow enough that it wouldn't look like running. My shoes squeaked every single time I moved. I could hear them over the hail. I kept the phone at my ear and said something else. I don't even remember what. Probably nothing that made sense. I just needed another person to exist in the room, even if I had to fake it. I got my hand on the door handle. For a second, I thought he was going to come out. I was waiting for it. Waiting for the stall door to fly open, waiting to hear footsteps, waiting for that voice right behind me. Nothing. I pulled the door open and the storm sound hit me all at once. Loud, cold, violent. Then I ran. Not graceful, not brave. I ran like an animal. Head down, bad footing, hail hitting my neck and hands. I slipped once off the curb by the lot and caught myself with one hand, and my keys almost went skidding under the car. I fumbled them so badly it took me, 3 tries maybe 4 to get the right key lined up. My hands were shaking too hard. I got in, slammed the door, hit the lock, then hit it again, then again, like the second and third click would somehow make it safer. I looked up before I put the car in drive. He was standing just inside the restroom doorway. Not chasing me, not waving, not even stepping out into the storm, just standing there in that dark opening, watching. The light behind him was so bad I couldn't make out his face. I remember a dark jacket, maybe a hoodie underneath. I'm less sure about that part. What I remember for sure is that he didn't move. That stillness was worse than if he'd run after me. I backed out too fast, tires slipping a little on the wet pavement, and got out of there with the wipers smearing rain more than clearing it. They were struggling so hard I had to lean forward over the steering wheel to see. My whole body was buzzing. My jaw hurt because I was clenching it without realizing. I kept checking the mirror, expecting headlights behind me, but there weren't any. I made it to a gas station a few miles away and called. Not 911. I should have, maybe. I don't know. I called non-emergency first, then I think I called the park office number after that. I was trying to sound calm and normal, and my voice kept breaking anyway. I told them there was a guy hiding in the restroom by the baseball field, acting wrong, watching people. I gave them the park name twice because my brain felt scrambled. By the time somebody checked, he was gone. They told me there were cigarette butts in the stall, and I think they said there was a damp duffel bag, or maybe just a pile of wet clothes and trash. I've replayed that call so many times the details blur together now. No one gave me a name. No one had an explanation that made anything better. He was just there, and then he wasn't. I still don't stop at empty parks if the weather starts turning. I keep driving. I don't care how bad the rain gets, how slow traffic is, how tired I am. I keep driving. And every time hail starts hitting the roof of my car, I hear that voice again, calm as a cashier, like he was offering me a place to wait. You don't have to stand by the door. There's room in here. When the power goes out during a thunderstorm, your house stops feeling like your house. The refrigerator hum dies, the Wi-Fi disappears, the walls feel farther apart, and every window suddenly feels like a place someone could be standing. The power cut out in the middle of a spring thunderstorm, and maybe 10 seconds later, somebody knocked on my front door. This happened last March when I was home from college, alone at my parents' house outside Louisville, and I still keep a flashlight next to my bed because of it. Actually, wait, it wasn't the weekend, it was Wednesday, the start of spring break. I remember that part because it was supposed to be one boring night by myself, just rain, takeout, and sleep. It had been one of those weird early spring days where it's almost too warm, like 70-something in March, and then by night everything turns green-gray and ugly. My parents were gone overnight. I was supposed to stay there and watch the house, and I was doing absolutely nothing special. I had a Wendy's bag on the coffee table, YouTube on the living room TV, and my phone charging in the kitchen because it was already low. Every family used to have one of those huge black Maglite flashlights in the junk drawer for outages, and I'd actually taken it out earlier because the lights had been flickering on and off for maybe 20 minutes. Then the whole house went black. Not dim, not flicker black, dead black. The TV snapped off, the Wi-Fi cut out, and the refrigerator stopped humming, and the rain got loud so fast it honestly sounded like somebody had opened a door to let it in. I remember looking at my phone and seeing it sitting at 12%, still plugged in, which felt insulting for some reason. No power, no Wi-Fi, street lights out. The whole block looked erased every time the lightning stopped. Then came the knock. 3 knocks, even, calm, not pounding, not frantic, just knock, knock, knock. That was the part that almost got me, because panic usually comes in loud and messy. This sounded normal, neighbor normal, somebody checking if you're home normal. And with the whole street dark, my first thought really was that maybe somebody nearby had a basement taking water, or a tree had come down, or they just wanted to know if we had power. That kind of social pressure is built into people. A normal knock makes you want to be normal back. Leaving sounds obvious when you're saying it after the fact, but I wasn't about to abandon my parents' house in the middle of a storm when the road was already starting to flood, my phone was hanging on by 12%, and I didn't even know for sure it was a person yet. The porch light was dead. The peephole was basically useless with the rain and darkness. So I walked up to the door, close enough to smell that wet wood smell old doors get, and I said, "Who is it?" Nothing. No answer at all. I stood there waiting, thinking maybe the storm swallowed their reply. That's how your brain works when it doesn't want to hand itself over to fear. It starts doing little favors for reality.
It fills in the kind explanation. It says, maybe they didn't hear me, maybe they stepped back, maybe it was a branch, maybe it was one of those sounds houses make when weather gets bad. I actually believed that for maybe 5 seconds. Then, the exact same knock came from the kitchen window on the side of the house. Same rhythm, same spacing, 3 clean knocks, and it happened way too fast. That was the moment my stomach dropped so hard I had to grab the wall. The front door and that kitchen window are not next to each other. To go from one to the other that quickly, in that rain, in that dark, meant somebody had already been moving around the house. I remember just standing there with the mag light in one hand, not even turning it on yet, because some part of me still wanted this to be anything else. Then lightning flashed, and I saw movement past the side of the kitchen glass. Not a face. I never got a clear face. I remember that really clearly, weirdly enough. I don't remember features. I remember shape, shoulder, head, a person-sized shift in the white-blue flash, close to the house, too close, and then gone again when it went dark. A few seconds later, 3 more knocks, this time at the back door. My mouth went dry immediately. I mean, instantly. My tongue felt thick. My hands started shaking so bad the flashlight slipped in my grip and smacked against the counter, and that sound seemed huge, like I'd just announced exactly where I was standing. I couldn't get a full breath. My legs had that locked feeling, where running is all your body wants to do and somehow it still won't move. Then I heard the back door handle move. Just once, a small sound, metal shifting, a test.
That one tiny sound did more to me than all the thunder that night. Because a knock can still be explained away if your brain is desperate enough. A hand on the handle is different. A person who needs help stays in one place and asks. A person who moves from the front door to the side window to the back door in under a minute is not confused. They're checking. They're figuring out what opens, who answers, who panics. And then, through the rain, from somewhere near the back, I heard a man's voice say, "You can just crack the door, I'm soaked." It was quiet, not yelling. That made it worse. There's a specific kind of fear that makes your body feel cold and hot at the same time. My ears were ringing. My heart was hitting so hard I could feel it in my throat. I remember backing up without taking my eyes off the dark hallway, like that mattered, like I could somehow watch the whole house at once. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and the mag light, and for a second I honestly couldn't remember where I'd left my keys even though they were right there by the bowl on the counter. My fingers were working like they belonged to somebody else. I wasn't calling 911 from inside that house. 12% battery and no certainty about where he was standing was not enough. I needed light, people, cameras, a locked car. So I waited. That part gets under my skin even now because I had to stand there listening for him to move again. Rain on the windows, wind pushing at the siding, my own breathing short and awful. Then another sound at the back. Not a knock this time, more like a bump against the patio area, maybe the trash cans, maybe the gate. I didn't stop to identify it, I just moved. I went out through the front as fast as I could, locked it behind me on instinct, then realized how stupid that was because if he'd been closer to the front, I would have run straight into him. But I didn't see anybody. The whole yard was just black and silver rain. My shoes were soaked in 2 steps. I got to my car, dropped the flashlight, picked it back up, dropped my keys, got the door open, and my hands were shaking so badly I missed the ignition the first time. I backed out way too fast, tires hissing through water at the curb, and drove to the speedway on the main road because it was the nearest place with lights. I still remember how bright that gas station looked. It felt fake.
It felt like walking into another world where people were buying energy drinks and acting like the night was normal. I called 911 from the parking lot with my charger plugged in and my voice sounding thin and embarrassingly high. And I kept looking at the glass doors every time somebody came in because I was convinced he had followed me. The police went to the house and checked around. They didn't find him. They never found him. They did find signs, though. Small ones. Real enough that nobody told me I imagined it. Muddy prints under the kitchen window, the side gate open. I don't remember if the officer said the screen on the side window was bent or just pulled loose at one corner. I remember a wet handprint on the glass, though. Or maybe that was just how I pictured it after they mentioned the window. And being honest with you, some of it blurs. The part that doesn't blur is knowing somebody had gone around the house trying entrances while I was inside making excuses for him. There wasn't some big ending after that. No arrest, no reveal, no neighbor coming forward saying they saw a truck idling nearby. My parents came home early. We replaced a motion light in the back that had stopped working. The officer said it was probably somebody looking for an easy house during the blackout, which is one of those explanations that sounds reasonable and somehow makes it worse. I still keep a flashlight next to my bed because of that night. Not my phone flashlight either, the actual heavy one. And I don't answer knocks during storms anymore, especially if the power is out. If somebody really needs help, I can call from behind a locked door. I never heard that man's voice again. Just those 3 knocks. Front door, window, back door. Same rhythm, every time.
March storms make ordinary roads feel borrowed. The rain flattens everything. The ditches fill up, the numbers on mailboxes disappear under mud, and your brain keeps stretching bad decisions into 10 more seconds because turning around feels dramatic and helping feels simple. Last March, during one of those cold late-season storms, my friend and I followed a distress call to a house on a county back road outside town, and later a deputy told us there wasn't even a listed address there. I don't tell this much, because the second people hear house not on the map, they start treating it like a campfire story, and the part that stays with me is how normal it all felt right up until it didn't. We weren't out looking for anything. That's the part that makes it stick. We'd gone to check on my aunt's place after the weather alerts started blowing up everybody's phones about wind and flash flooding, and by the time we locked her side door and headed back, it was fully dark and raining hard enough that the county road looked like it had a film over it. I was with my friend Cole in his old Silverado, the one with the bench seat that always smelled a little like wet denim and old heater dust, and the floor mats were soaked through from our boots. The heater was blasting at our shins, the wipers were working like they were angry at the glass, and we had 2 gas station coffees from Casey's in the cup holders, already going lukewarm. There was a giant black mag light on the passenger side floorboard, one of those huge ones that used to just permanently live in every vehicle when we were kids, and it kept rolling into my boot every time he hit a pothole. Cole was off-duty volunteer fire, and he always kept his radio on low under the dash. Not loud, just loud enough to catch tones or traffic if something nearby went bad. I think it was around 9:40. Actually, wait, no, it was after 10, because the coffee had that thin, stale taste it gets when it sits too long with the lid on. The radio crackled. Dispatch repeated an address, and then there was a woman's voice trying to talk through crying. That sound hits your body before your brain does. I don't remember her exact wording, not perfectly. I remember "please hurry." I remember her swallowing air between words, and I remember either "he's outside" or "he's still outside," something like that. The sentence is fuzzy. The panic in her throat isn't.
Cole looked at me and said he knew the road, said it was maybe 5 minutes from where we were. And once something feels that close, leaving starts to feel like a stain. He said responders might have trouble seeing the driveway in the rain anyway, and if all we did was get there first and wave somebody down, fine. It wasn't hero stuff. It was worse than that. It was normal guy logic. A woman sounded genuinely wrong, we were nearby, and neither of us wanted to be the kind of person who drove away from a real emergency and then heard later that somebody died waiting. At first, it still tracked. We turned off the county road where he said to turn, and the GPS on my phone kept spinning like it couldn't decide where we were. It showed a dead end too early, then jumped us backward, then tried to reroute us to the main highway like the road itself had blinked out. The rain was coming sideways by then, hard enough that the headlights looked weak. Mailbox numbers started making less and less sense. We'd pass a 2132, then a 2132, then one with no numbers at all, just an old box leaning forward on a post with weeds wrapped around it. That's what weather does out there. It strips everything down until you're trusting your own momentum more than any sign. Then Cole slowed and said, "There." I almost missed it. There was a narrow gravel cut-through on the left. No street sign, no reflector, nothing but a break in the brush and 2 muddy tire grooves sliding off into the dark. It didn't look like a driveway people used every day. It looked like one of those access lanes to a field or an old hunting patch. He hesitated for a second. I felt my stomach pulled tight in that slow, sinking way where your body starts objecting before your mouth does. Then the radio repeated the address one more time, and he turned in. The house was farther back than it should have been. That was the first real glitch. You expect the farmhouse set back a little, fine, but this one set deep enough that our headlights found it in pieces. First the bottom of the porch, then one side of the siding, then a single upstairs window with a weak yellow light on behind a curtain. Everything else was dark. No porch light, no lamp in the front room, no vehicle in front that I could see, which hit me immediately because a woman calling for help from a house in that weather should have had some sign of normal life attached to it. A car, a truck, something. We idled about halfway up because the lane was turning to soup under the tires and the rain on the roof was so loud we had to lean toward each other to hear. Cole put the truck in park but kept his hand on the shifter. I reached down and picked up the maglite without even deciding to. The metal was cold and slick from the floor. That upstairs curtain moved a little, just enough to show there was someone behind it. Not waving, not trying to get our attention, just there. And once I noticed that, other things started surfacing all at once, like my brain had been refusing them in order. There were fresh tire tracks in the mud already, more than one set. The front door was cracked open. There was no light spilling from inside that open door. And off to the right of the house, near the side where the gutters ran down, I could see shape where there should just be shadow. Then another one, person height, too still. I had my hand on the door handle. That's the part I keep replaying. If I hadn't looked up at the upstairs window right then, I stepped out. I know I would have. I glanced up because the curtain shifted again, and for half a second I saw a figure in the lit room pull back from the glass, fast, like they didn't want to be seen watching us arrive. Not panicked, not frantic, controlled. That did something ugly to my insides. My mouth dried up all at once. My fingers locked around the handle and just stopped. Then a man's voice came out of the dark to our right, calm as ordering food at a drive-thru. You can park closer if you want. Not loud, not angry, just easy, friendly almost. Every part of me went cold at once.
Cole didn't answer. I didn't either. He still hadn't looked at me, but I saw his knuckles go white on the wheel. The rain kept hammering the roof. One of those shapes by the side of the house moved, just a little, and it stopped being a trick of the light. It was a person, maybe two. I still couldn't see faces. I remember the posture more than anything, like they'd already settled in and were waiting for the next part. Cole pulled the shifter down. The truck jumped. He hit reverse too hard, and the back tires spun, just spraying mud. For one awful second, we didn't move at all. The engine climbed, the whole cab shook, and that was the longest second of the night, because we were still pointed at the house, still lit up, still there. Then the tires caught. We lurched backward, crooked, clipped a low branch so hard it scraped across the bed and passenger side with this screaming metal sound, and slid half into the ditch before he corrected. I smacked my shoulder into the door and dropped the mag light. It hit the floor with a thud and rolled under the seat. I remember grabbing the dash with one hand and the seat with the other, because my body had gone loose and heavy at the same time. Nobody chased us on foot. That would almost make more sense in my head now. Instead, as we backed down that lane, I saw movement near the front porch, and one of the side shadows stepped closer to where our headlights had been. Not running, not rushing, just coming forward like it didn't need to hurry. That was somehow worse. We fishtailed onto the county road, and Cole punched it. Mud was slapping the wheel wells, the wipers were losing, and I kept looking in the side mirror, expecting headlights to appear behind us. My chest was doing that hard, painful thumping where you can feel each beat in your throat. Neither of us said anything for maybe a full minute. It felt like longer. Then my phone caught one bar and dropped it again. Then two. I called 911 while he kept driving.
Try explaining a place that already feels wrong while your hands are shaking so badly you nearly miss the screen. I gave them the address from the radio, the road we turned off, the landmarks I could remember, which wasn't much because rain wipes details out of your head. The dispatcher stayed steady, told us deputies were checking it. We pulled into a lit gas station lot off the highway and sat there dripping county road mud into the truck while the heater blasted stale hot air at us. Cole kept staring through the windshield like if he blinked he'd see that upstairs window again. A deputy called back later, not long after midnight, and that part still bothers me more than the house itself. He asked us to repeat the address because they weren't finding a registered residence at that exact number. He said there was an old access lane in that area tied to a hunting parcel, maybe an abandoned structure farther back, but nothing listed as an occupied home where we said we'd been. He sounded annoyed more than anything, like he thought we'd taken a wrong turn in the storm and spooked ourselves. Maybe we did. That's the easy version. Except I can still hear the woman crying on the radio, and I can still hear that man in the dark telling us we could park closer. We went back the next day in daylight, which was stupid in a completely different way. The rain had mostly moved out, everything was gray and washed clean, and the road looked smaller than I remembered. We found the county turnoff. We found the stretch where the mailbox numbers got strange. We even found a couple gravel cuts through the brush. None of them led to that house. One dead-ended at a flooded field. One curved off to a locked gate with posted signs. One was barely wide enough for an ATV. We drove that whole area twice, then once more slower, and the whole time I had that same sick, hollow feeling low in my stomach, like my body was recognizing something my eyes weren't. Maybe there was an unlisted house back there, and we turned into the wrong lane in the storm. Maybe somebody was using dispatch chatter and the weather to pull people onto that road. Maybe the address was given wrong. Maybe the deputies checked the wrong property. There are plenty of explanations when the sun is up and the road is dry. I still don't take that stretch at night.
And whenever rain hits the windshield hard enough to blur the numbers on mailboxes, I think about how close I came to opening that door and walking toward a house that wanted us a little nearer before we understood what we were looking at. That part never changes. That part is clear.
Out of everything we heard tonight,
Which story actually unsettled you the most? The first one really got under my skin, but I want to know which one did it for you. Vote for the scariest story in the comments below.